Just hours after President Trump called for a pause and review of all military aid to Ukraine on Monday night, Ukraine's President Zelensky said he's ready to sign the rare earth minerals deal and hold peace talks. Zelensky said the Oval Office meeting did not go the way it should have, calling it regrettable and saying it's time to make things right. Joining us to discuss is Kervin Okun, former lead ISR coordinator for the U.S. Army and host of This Week Explained podcast. Good to see you, Kervin. Thanks for joining us this morning. Last night, Trump said the minerals deal is coming, despite last week's fallout in the Oval Office. What's in the mineral deal, and can we expect the beginning of peace negotiations to follow?
Well, first of all, thank you again for having me on. Yeah, the minerals deal here with Ukraine it's pretty big because what it allows for is the U.S. to recoup some of the money that was spent in order to fund the war in Ukraine, to send munitions out to Ukraine. But it also helps with the rebuilding of Ukraine. So what it allow is for the United States to have access to rare earth minerals within Ukraine. And then Ukraine, by some accounts, would get a security guarantee because the U.S. would not want Russia to move even further into Ukraine to take those minerals away from the U.S. That would cause some pain to the economy in the United States. There's a little bit of security guarantee there. How close are we to them signing that? It's pretty close. But how close are we to peace? I still think we are pretty far off from peace because we still have to get Vladimir Putin's decision on that as well. And some analysts say that the Russian economy right now is built on the war in Ukraine, and Russia cannot allow itself to stop this war.
Interesting. We'll have to dig into that a little bit more. But I want to go back to the Oval Office dispute. Right after that, European leaders reaffirmed their support for Ukraine and for defense spending. What are EU countries saying now about Ukraine? And would you say that they're reevaluating their role in the conflict?
Yeah, absolutely. They are seeing the United States taking a step back in providing munitions and equipment to Ukraine. So they're going to have to step up. And listen, President Trump has been very consistent in this, and he's right. This is a war in Europe, and Europe needs to defend it. So NATO needs to step up. NATO does need to spend more to protect Ukraine. If what they believe is true, that Russia is a threat, it is a threat to NATO countries, it's a threat to all of Europe, then they need to prove that by stepping up and giving Ukraine more.
And to illustrate that, UK's Keir Starmer said recently the UK is actually ready to put boots on the ground and planes in the air to facilitate a peace deal. Russia responded saying, not acceptable. Is the UK's position here at odds with President Trump's wish to just bring Russia to the table?
Absolutely. Yeah. So putting boots on the ground from any NATO country, even if it's in sort of this peacekeeping mission, that's a huge no-go. That's a huge no-go for Putin, but also for Donald Trump. He wants to be the president that brokered peace and brought peace to the world. When I talk about presidents and what they're doing, I always talk about their legacy. What is the legacy? Donald Trump's legacy is what he wants is that prosperity in the United States and peace around the world that was brokered by him.
Now, going back to that explosive meeting in the Oval Office one more time, Senator Graham and House Speaker Johnson have both called for Zelensky to step down. What are their concerns with Zelensky?
Yeah, look, and this is something that's been turned into people saying that this is this Russian talking points or Russian misinformation. The fact is, when Russia invaded in February of 2022, martial law was declared first by the president, Zelensky, but it had to be ratified by the Constitution in Ukraine, and that was ratified by the Constitution by the parliament, in Ukraine. And in martial law, they are not allowed to hold elections within the country of Ukraine. And that's where we stand right now. So Zelensky cannot, he cannot just with a pen, wield a pen and say, we're done, we're not in martial law anymore until this war is over. So when a peace deal is signed, and one will get signed, when a peace deal is signed, the parliament will come together with Zelensky, with all of the competing campaigns, and in 6 months from that time, they will hold elections. So Zelensky absolutely cannot just undeclare martial law and hold elections. The parliament's going to have to do that. So all this talk about him, resigning or getting NATO, getting Ukraine into NATO because he's resigning, that stuff needs to stop. And we need to talk about how do we achieve peace brokered between Ukraine and Russia.
And in our last 30 seconds, how do we achieve that?
Well, we've got to get both presidents to the negotiating table, and we've got to find a balance. So both sides are going to bring extreme deals to the table, and it's up to Trump and his administration to whittle that down to something that both sides can sign and bring to their countries and say, look, we won, we brokered peace, and this war is over.
We appreciate your insights this morning. Always good to have you. Kervin Oken, host of This Week Explained podcast. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.